Hi and welcome to Terry Talks Movies. This time around I'm recording this again because I forgot to record the first part of this video because I am a flawed vessel and I'm imperfect. And I've got a whole bunch of things to review for you. This lot, a whole bunch of new stuff from Umbrella Entertainment, who have provided a whole bunch of review copies of their latest collector's editions. There are standard editions of all of these as well, and I will post links to where you can get them at the Umbrella website. The collector's editions are only available through the Umbrella website, not through third-party resellers. And thanks to Umbrella Entertainment for providing these. The first one I've got for you, which is the one I'm re-recording, is a movie from 2003. You remember 2003, it was in all the newspapers and online. A little thing starring Baby Goose called Lars and the Real Girl. I'll read you the blurb from Umbrella's actual website. When Lars Lindstrom, Ryan Gosling, Baby Goose, introduces his brother Gus, Paul Schneider, and his sister-in-law Karen, Emily Mortimer, to his new friend Bianca, who he met on the internet, their immediate response is shock and disbelief. Has Lars, the sweet, socially challenged introvert, gone completely mad? They meet Bianca and see a doll, but Lars sees a friend. Bianca isn't a real woman at all, but a real doll. How would they explain this to the residents of this sleepy, religious Midwestern town they've grown up in? And that's a setup. I kind of like that setup because it's saying, who's he hurting by doing this? That's an interesting question. One of the questions we have in modern society is, if something changes, who does it harm? And it's always a good lens through which to view a lot of things. I'm looking forward to watching this one. I haven't seen it yet, but it sounds like it may have some things to say about many, many contemporary conundrums. Now, I'll go to the disc this time before I go to what's in the box, apart from the disc. Audio commentary with the writer and critic Thomas Caldwell. Lars, a Modern Pygmalion. An audio essay by Dr. Josh Nelson. That's an interesting approach to take. Lars' Pygmalion. The real story of Lars and the Real Girl featurette. A real leading lady featurette. Bathtub deleted scene in a trailer. And by the way, the artwork here is by Loopy Dave Duncan. I really like that as a design for the front of a collector's edition. On the back, it's got Meet Bianca, the companion of your dreams. And if you want to find out more about Bianca, you can freeze that one and just enjoy the slightly tongue-in-cheek wording there. Of course, there's the card from the back, but put the card into the box. So there it is, there with all the details. Like all of the others, it's a limited edition of 1,000 in the collector's edition. The slipcover is really cool too. I love that slipcover. That just works for me. And there is Bianca being delivered. Inside that, you've got a more ordinary looking piece of artwork. On the back, you've got all of that. This is a reversible cover as well to get rid of the censorship classification as always. Inside, you've got the disc. And you've got the poster. Now, I really dig this poster. I just love the way it looks. That one is a winner for me. Then you got that one on the other side. You also get art cards, because of course you do. Baby Goose with a tash. Baby Goose whispering to Bianca. There's his brother. Baby Goose going full kingpin. And there's a brother and a sister-in-law. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. I need this kind of a comedy, I think, at the moment. We've got so much weird stuff happening that it's good to have a little break and have something a little bit tongue-in-cheek and a little bit heartwarming. We also get the booklet, of course, because of course we do. In the booklet, you get a 48-page book with behind-the-scenes experiences and art, with essays by Brodie Lancaster and Digby Horton. Custom designed rigid case by Libby Dave Duncan. 8 art cards, A3 reversible poster, and all of the aforementioned stuff. And for those who care, the movie is rated PG for mild sexual references. So it's a little bit of an innocent one. And it's very much less confronting than some of these other movies. Unless, of course, you get freaked out by rubber dolls. So there it is. The next one's actually filmed in Perth, Western Australia, a town I have a lot of fondness for. And I know a lot of really cool people in Perth and in Western Australia. Hi to Damien, amongst other people, and Heather. Very much a dark film, a really, really dark crime horror film called Hounds of Love from 2016. This one is a challenging film. I'll read you the blurb from the back cover. Perth in the summer of 1987, so it's a period piece. Teenager Vicky Maloney is kidnapped by John and Evelyn White, who prowl the streets of suburban Perth looking for their victims. Held prisoner in their suburban home, Vicky watches the twisted couple, knowing that she has to exploit any opportunity if she is to survive. The movie was directed by Ben Young, stars Stephen Curry, Ashley Cummings, and Emma Booth as young Vicky. I've seen this one before. I haven't seen it watching it this time around, but it's a tough film to watch. It's really grounded horror. It's not exploitative and it's not prurient, but it's genuinely a creepy film. It's not going to be for everybody, to be honest. Luna has just announced her arrival. How you doing, baby? I think she's going to go and sit in the window. She doesn't like it when it's this hot. But there's the card from the back. And the weird thing is it's so hot and humid here that the cards are starting to bend up if I leave them on the back. Just one of those climate things. There's nothing to do with the quality of the card. Let you know what the extras are in this release. A 48-page book with behind-the-scenes experiences and art with essays by Alexandra Heller-Nicholas and Andrew Pearce, both of whom are great people. The other person in the movie who's really important is Susie Porter, who plays Vicky's mother, and is wandering the streets just trying to find her daughter for a lot of the film. There's Ben Young, the director. There's a director's statement from Ben Young, and an essay called Dolesville by Andrew Pearce. So beautifully detailed essays in these. I love them. And there's one called Hounds of Love, Kate Bush and Beyond by Alexandra Heller-Nicholas. Like I said, not an easy film, particularly for people who may have experienced various forms of abuse. There's Stephen Curry and Ashley Cummings. Really great acting. The acting is just fantastic. Suburban Perth. I'm trying to be careful with these art cards because some of the images might be a bit confronting. They're not really adult material, but they are confronting. Stephen Curry is chilling in this thing. And the way Vicky tries to prevail is by trying to drive a wedge between this couple who seem devoted to each other even though they're really sick puppies. Her only chance of survival is to find a way to drive a wedge between the couple. And she listens to what they say and tries to use what she hears to leverage her own survival. Inside we've got a very dark slipcover. Have you seen this girl? There's the inside cover. And again, this is a reversible cover. For Hounds of Love, you get on the disc an audio commentary with director Ben Young, an audio commentary with actor Stephen Curry, an audio commentary with critic Simon Moraldo, a video essay by Travis Johnson, and hi to Travis, Tall Tales and True Hounds of Love, and an Australian crime cinema. I'm looking forward to watching that one. Behind the scenes featurette, interview with Emma Booth, interview with Ashley Cummings, interview with Stephen Curry, From Emma to Evelyn, a makeup transformation featurette, and a couple of short films by Ben Young, Bush Basher and Something Fishy, an isolated score, and a trailer, so there's some good stuff there. And we do get a poster, though I would question people who really want to have this poster on their walls for the simple reason it's just such a dark and confronting kind of subject matter, good though the film is. And again, all credit to Umbrella for supporting Australian movies and giving them a release, and a decent release with a lot of extras on them. These are movies that mainstream releasing companies just wouldn't touch because they're a little too off the mainstream and a little bit too odd. There's also a little bit of cultural cringe about Australian content by large releasing companies, which are overwhelmingly owned by overseas interests, unlike Umbrella. And there's that very 1980s kind of patterning on the hard case as well. Like I said, it's not a movie for everybody, but if you are a fan of Australian cinema and you are able to watch films as realistically confronting as Hounds of Love, it's a very good film. And again, supporting local Australian films is something Umbrella's been doing for the 21 years they've been going. And all credit to them for that. So that's the second of the new releases I have not watched recently. Luna has shown up briefly. She's only going to sit here for a minute before she wriggles loose. But I thought I'd put her up here to say hello. I think she just wants... Will you stop knocking the tripod, please? Thank you. These 3 movies I watched last night, and I stayed up until about 3 o'clock in the morning to watch them, because why not? None of them I'd ever seen before. And one of them is Australian, and 2 of them are by an English director who did some interesting work. I don't know whether he's still working in cinema or not. He may be doing episodic stuff for streaming services. But really interesting filmmaker. But I'm going to start with the Australian one, directed by Jeffrey Wright. This one's from 1994. And it's set out here in the hood, out in the western suburbs of Melbourne. Jeffrey Wright, the director and writer of this film, also did another movie you might have heard of called Romper Stomper, which was the movie that brought Russell Crowe to international fame. And it's a movie called Metal Skin, which is about young people living in the western suburbs of Melbourne. And the 2 guys that are played by Aidan Young and Ben Mendelsohn, Mendo, who now has international renown as a character actor, they're into cars. They're into racing cars. They've got a common passion for that. Both of them work in a grocery warehouse. Mendo's character, Daisy, his last name's Daisy, so they call him Daisy, has a girlfriend played by Nadine Gardner. And they have a very strained relationship. They've been boyfriend and girlfriend since before they left high school, but there's trauma between them. And Aidan Young's character, Joe, lives with his father who has dementia. He's really trying to find his way in the world. There's another woman who works at the warehouse, Savina, played by Tara Maurice, who's interested in Daisy, who sleeps around a lot even though he does have a girlfriend, and who uses black magic to try to seduce him. This movie goes to some weird places. It's incredibly surrealistic. The editing is very, very different from any editing I've seen in an Australian movie on this subject matter ever. And it's a very dark story, and it does not end happily for the characters. It's a bleak story. And it's because it's made and set in 1994. That was when the state government was run by a guy called Jeff Kennett, a right-wing nut job, essentially, who's still spouting off right-wing propaganda to this very day. And the resources available to help areas of economic disadvantage were being stripped away. Schools were being closed all over the place. Government resources were being shut down. They changed the transport system and got rid of changed the transport system and got rid of tram conductors, which everybody loved. Tram conductors were great. They were entertainment while you were riding the trams around as much as they were ticket collectors. And it was a time of that kind of disadvantage for people. And so that's the whole ambience behind this. And also in the western suburbs, there's a weird segregation because there's Melbourne and there's the inner suburbs to the west. And then there's a whole strip of industrial area and oil refineries and industry and warehouses. And then you get suburbs after that, heading outwards. And these characters live just on the outer part of that. It's a bleak movie and confronting movie, but geez, it's well made. It is, for me, better than Romper Stomper. Romper Stomper I didn't care for. The characters were skinhead neo-Nazis, so they're not really my tribe. But these characters are much more relatable to me, even though they are all incredibly messed up. So inside you've got a slipcover. There's the artwork on the slipcover. You get a more traditional kind of artwork on that part of the cover. This is another limited release of 1,000 copies on the collector's edition. And we get art cards, of course. There's Aidan Young's Joe, who's known as Psycho Joe by some people. There's Tara Maurice playing Savina, who is very kind of gothy and witchy. Nadine Gardner's character, who has some backstory which is quite confronting. There's a character of Joe's father who has dementia but is also a pistol champion. Ben Mendelsohn, Mendo, in a car. There's a couple of the other car racers around. There's Joe confronting Daisy. And there's Nadine Gardner's character again. The art cards are in black and white, but the movie is in colour. But I think having the art cards in black and white suits the style and the tone of the movie. By the way, the other side of the hard case is that. And there is the back card as well. So that car image on the booklet is fantastic. Now the booklet contains, it's 48 pages. It's got a behind the scenes experiences and art with essays by Nadine Whitney, hi Nadine, and director Jeffrey Wright, custom designed rigid case, custom designed slip card, 8 art cards, a reversible poster, and I haven't shown you the poster, reversible poster with metal skin on one side, and the short film Jeffrey Wright did that's included on the disc, Loverboy, which also stars Mendo, on the other side, which is a nice addition, not just having the main feature, but also having a supporting feature on the poster is kind of cool. And on the disc itself, we get an audio commentary with the director, writer Jeffrey Wright, producer Daniel Scharf, composer John Clifford White, and the soundtrack on this is great. The DP, second unit camera operator Brent Crockett, and members of the sound department. A new 2024 question and answer with Jeffrey Wright and producer Daniel Scharf, filmed at Fantastic Film Festival screening of Metal Skin. Original 1995 interviews with Jeffrey Wright, Aidan Young, Nadine Gardner, and Tara Maurice. Loverboy, the short film I mentioned. Motion picture soundtrack and original theatrical trailer. So there's a lot on this. And it's one of those obscure Australian movies. It was shown on a lot of screens at the start when it was released here in Australia because Romper Stomper had done so well. And then in the second and third weeks, it just dropped off a cliff as far as bums on seats is concerned. Was put on fewer and fewer cinema screens and fewer sessions. And when it went to physical media, it kind of got lost amongst all of the other bits of physical media. So it's good that this one's got a resurrection because I think it's an important bit of Australian cinema. It rates up there with a 1970s movie, which I think is fantastic as well, called The F.J. Holden. It's got that same kind of vibe, but intensified about 10 times. So I watched that about 1 o'clock this morning, and watching it late at night was kind of a bleak experience, but it's an incredibly worthwhile film, and I can't speak highly enough of it. It doesn't look or feel like any other Australian movie I can recall, and that's a high praise. Yes, it's along a similar subject matter to the F.J. Holden, but the whole style of it and the whole approach it takes to the subject matter and the characters and the arc of their stories is unique. And this one, if you're a fan of Australian cinema, you've got to get a copy of this in some way from Umbrella. It's starting to get really hot here. These last two are directed by Christopher Smith, an English director who also directed a movie that's just been released a couple of months ago by Umbrella called Triangle, which is really, really good. And it's nice to see that all three of these movies are getting releases for Umbrella because I think they're all worthwhile. I've actually got a DVD copy of this one that I picked up somewhere in an op shop, but I'm glad it's got an update. It's a very visceral horror film from 2004 called Creep. And Creep stars Franca Potente as a woman called Kate who leaves a party in London on a winter's night, and she can't find a taxi to get to where she wants to go. And so she heads for the underground train station and she encounters a couple of homeless people. And she's a little bit out of it. She's had a joint. She's sipping vodka out of little bottles. And she falls asleep and misses the last train. And she goes back up to the entrance to the underground station and it's locked. And so she's trapped on this platform. And what she doesn't know is that there's something living down there. A cannibalistic, mutated human being whose name turns out to be Craig, and who is farming and harvesting people he grabs for meat. Now, Craig is actually played by Sean Harris, an actor who has turned up in a number of films. I think he's either in the James Bond franchise or the Mission Impossible one. It could be the Mission Impossible one. It could be both. But this is a younger Sean Harris playing an incredibly monstrous monster. And that's not the only threat that Kate has. There's also a man she knew at the party who encounters her on a train. And she does find a train. He's not somebody you want to be trapped on a train with, let's just put it that way. This one's incredibly good. It's creepy as hell. It reminds me a little bit of another movie from the 1970s called Raw Meat, also known as Deathline. I've talked about it on the channel before. It's got Donald Pleasance playing a police guy chasing a cannibal who lives in the underground train tunnels of London. And Christopher Smith, the director and writer of this film, says he hadn't seen Deathline, Raw Meat, before he made this one. I can believe that. It takes a very different approach to the subject matter. At times it veers towards torture porn, but doesn't quite get there. It's a bloody gory horror movie. Let's just put it that way. But it's got some interesting things. Kate isn't a normal last girl kind of character. For a start, she's an immigrant from Germany living in London, so she's not a native Londoner. And Franka Potente is really good portraying her. Kate's very intelligent and smart. She's out of her comfort zone. She finds a way to adapt. She's got resilience and toughness. And that makes it a much more interesting character than a lot of scream queens. And the interesting thing too is she encounters a homeless couple living in a little cul-de-sac tunnel in the train stations. And they're not cliched characters at all. Their names are Jim and Mandy. And they actually help her. They're not bad people. Yes, they're messed up by substance abuse. They're real human characters. They're not just cliches of drugged out homeless people. They are real characters. And all credit to Christopher Smith for that, because it makes it such a more fascinating movie. And when Craig encounters this couple individually, and their little dog, they've got a little dog, it matters what happens to them. And I really like that. I think that's such a strong and smart way to make this kind of movie, where you can look at unhoused people and just consider them a cliche. But he doesn't do that. He makes them real characters. And I loved that. And Franka Potente, of course, we remember her from Run Lola Run, when she was Matt Damon's girlfriend in the first Bourne movie. She's great as Kate, and she gets a really interesting arc, which ends with her laughing on a train platform for reasons that you'd have to go for the full journey to see. And the makeup work for Craig is fantastic. He's really a creepy, strange being. And we do find out a little bit of his backstory as not only Kate, but also a sewer worker that she finds in Craig's underwater pens. They find where Craig came from. And that's in itself an interesting thing. This is a hidden gem. I think it's a bloody honest one, and it's a good one. And I really enjoyed it. Now, I'm going to put up here the back cover of the film. Because here it is. There it is. I found it. I didn't think I had it, but I found it. There's the back cover. Again, this is a limited edition 1000 in the collector's editions. And there's a lot of good extras on this. It really is one of those roller coaster horror movie rides. The hardcover design, by the way, is by Mutant Design, and so is the slipcase. There's the hardcover, which I liked, and the tagline, "Evil dwells underground." And on the back we've got, "Your journey terminates here." Nice, solid hard case, and it looks good on a shelf. Then the soft cover, we've got that. Ever missed the last train? And to be honest, I have. I got a story about really late at night in the Sydney underground train stations, the Town Hall station in Sydney. And I was there really late at night trying to get a last train. The trains were thinning out. I had one last train to get, and I actually caught it. But before I got on the train, down beside the tracks was a rat, and I am not exaggerating one tiny bit, that big. It was only years later I found out what it was. It's a Ricali. It's an Australian water rat. They're all up and down the east coast of Australia, and they're native rats. And they're fairly harmless. They don't hurt people at all. But they scavenge, they eat oysters and shellfish and things like that. They're not endangered, but certain habitats are threatened. But the Ricalis are enormous jobbies. And I didn't know. I thought it was a normal rat grown to mutant size. And it scared the shit out of me at the time. So when I see the rats in a movie like Creep, I'm reminded of that little innocent Ricali that I thought was a monster back when I was like 20 years old. But back to the movie. There's your inside case. There's your back. Reversible cover, of course, with the disc. And you do get a reversible poster with the Mutant Design artwork on one side. And sideways you get the other art was there. I always drop things when I'm doing this. Of course, you get art cards, and fortunately, I can show you all of these art cards. They're all stylized and colorized, interestingly. There's Mandy, one of the homeless people. There's a brief glimpse of Craig. There's one of the shelves where Craig came from. Here's another picture of Craig and Mandy where you have hints of what Craig looks like. And there he is there with his underwater pens. And the other creepy thing about Craig is wherever he goes, there are hordes of rats following him around, which gives him a really supernatural, creepy aspect. And there are Craig with the rats. And there's the sewer worker who Kate finds in the underwater pens. And of course, we get another booklet. There is Craig in all his glory. Next Stop in Terror by Nathaniel Thompson, another essay, which talks about movies like Raw Meat and a few others, Black Christmas and Hell Night and things like that. Here's one by a friend of the channel, John Harrison, Creep and the Spectre of Sexual Violence by John Harrison, which talks about I Spit on Your Grave and Death Wish and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Accused and other films of that type. And there's a little essay about the films of Franca Potente, Run Franca Run. And she does a lot of running in this movie as well. There's a whole bunch of comic book artwork in here as well, based around the movie. And there's also a Dark Visions magazine essay about Lucio Fulci's movie Creep. So it extends beyond this particular film. These essay books are always fun for the extras that they give and the fact that they take us some interesting places. There's even a little article about video nasties there. Now, apart from all of the physical stuff there, we get on the disc an audio commentary with the director Christopher Smith, a new interview with Christopher Smith in 2024, an interview with the producer Julie Baines from 2024, a new visual essay, Mind the Gap, A History of British Locomotive Horror, Jared Gahan, archival interviews with Franca Potente, Vass Blackwood and Jeremy Sheffield, who are the actors. And also Christopher Smith, producers Julie Baines, Joseph Newmark, Mark Hageman and Kai Kunneman. Making of Creep featurette, production design, The Look of Creep featurette, makeup, Making the Creep featurette, Fright Fest 2004 press conference, Operation Deleted Scenes storyboards, alternative beginnings and endings, and a walkthrough of Creeps 3D The Last Tube game. There was a game back in the day based on the movie and a trailer. So a lot of extras there as well. The curating of these releases is chef's kiss good. There's so many extras and so many things gathered from different sources that you get with Umbrella releases. Even if you just get a standard release, you're still getting all that stuff on the discs. And it's great. Which brings us to a 2006 movie directed by Christopher Smith and written by him, a comedy horror film called Severance, which I enjoyed a lot. I giggled in all the right places in this movie. It's got some genuine horror in it, but it's also quite funny. The tone shifts in interesting ways. There are bits of it that are bleakly dark and horrible, but there are also bits of it which are crazy funny. And I like that, but there's a severed leg there because there's a severed leg in the movie. It says there another bloody office outing. There's the back cover. I'll explain that a little bit later. There's the card, and I will give you everything that's on the card a little bit later. And here's the blurb that we get from Umbrella Entertainment. During a team-building retreat in the mountains of Eastern Europe, a group of sales representatives for an arms company are hunted down one by one. With razor-sharp humor and intense suspense, Severance is an unpredictable thrill ride that balances satire and scares, delivering a unique twist on both the slasher and the workplace comedy genres, and it does. It stars Danny Dyer, Tim McGannery, Andy Nyman, and Laura Harris, and that's exactly what it is. There are a whole bunch of these sales reps on a bus heading to a retreat lodge to do team building exercise, paintball, that kind of gear in Eastern Europe. And they get to a certain point on their way to this lodge. And there's a tree falling down across the road. And they're pissed off their bus driver because they're all tossers, really. And the bus driver just leaves them there and says, go on the other road if you want to. I'm not going to drive down there. I don't know where it goes. And they don't have any online maps. They've only got physical maps because there's no signal for mobile phones in the area. The boss is played by Tim McGinnery, and he's totally hopeless. There's a slacker druggie played by Danny Dyer, and there's actually an explanation in the booklet on who Danny Dyer is, because he's not known at all outside the UK. And so they go walking down this road and find a really ramshackle lodge, thinking it's where their team building exercise is supposed to be. But it isn't. It's actually a lodge used by a bunch of war criminals, and have decided to set things up so that they hunt down whoever wanders into their area. There are booby traps everywhere. There are sniper posts up in trees. The lodge is their place, and this hopeless, gormless bunch of office jerks are there and are the latest lot of prey. There is a sequence at the start of the movie where one guy gets strung up by his heels by a trap, and a pair of Eastern European sex workers are caught in a pit, which rolls into, we find out later it's actually a flash forward to something later in the movie, which is kind of cool because it sets up for us, before we meet all of this bus full of idiots, it sets up for us that the people hunting them are serious people. And I also like the fact that all the characters are unlikable each in their own way, but we still feel for them when they start getting the chop. It's funny, it's transgressive. There's a fantastic scene with a bazooka, which I'm not going to spoil for you beyond that, which I found hilarious. There's blood and guts, there's cannibalism, there's all sorts of nastiness going on, but it's still got that tone that shifts from the bleak and confronting horror to the humor in a really good way. Those tonal shifts are difficult to do well, but I think Severance does them very well. You 1 minute you're looking at somebody tied to a tree having petrol poured over them, and the next minute you've got a much lighter scene, and it works. That tonal shift just works in a way that is kind of at the level of someone like Edgar Wright. I enjoyed this movie, and I'm glad I've got it. So I'll go through the extra stuff. We get the cards. There's Tim McGinnery and the team trudging around trying to find out where the hell they are. There's a scene from near the end of the film. Danny Dyer being helped out by 2 Eastern European sex workers. Women with machine guns are never bad in a movie. There's one of the fantasies Danny Dyer's character has while he is totally fuddrucked. There's Danny Dyer's character getting fuddrucked. Here's one of the office people. I'm going to hold my hand over the amputation of the leg. Hog-tied character. Yeah, this movie's changes of tone are just so much fun. And I love what they did with it. So here's your slipcase. Totally different style of artwork there. There is a reason one of the characters doesn't have a head. He's played by Toby Stephens. Inside you've got the headless guy again. But of course we get the double-sided postal once more. That one, which I kind of like. And that one, which is kind of cool too. And of course we'll get the booklet as well. I like the logo of the company they work for because it cuts corners. And there's the welcome to the Palisade Lodge, Palisade being the company they work for. And the extras we get, 48-page booklet with behind-the-scenes experiences and art. Custom designed by Mutant Design again. That's for the rigid case and the slipcase. 8 art cards, reversible poster. Audio commentary with Christopher Smith, Danny Dyer, Tim McGinnery, John Frankish, Andy Nyman, Babu Cersei and James Moran. A new 2024 interview with Christopher Smith. Interview with actor Andy Nyman. The making of Severance featurette, being Danny Dyer featurette, explaining who the hell Danny Dyer is. The genesis of Severance featurette. Danny fight scene featurette, deleted scenes, outtakes, crashing a coach featurette, because they actually do roll a bus in this movie. Palisade corporate video featurette, which is funny. Not so special effects featurette. Alternative ending and lodge incident fact-finding interviews featurette, and a trailer. So there's a lot of extras on this one as well. This one actually recommended to Sally, middle-aged geek girl. because she likes certain horror movies, but not all horror movies. But I think the tone on this one will suit her really well, and she'll get a kick out of it. So we're getting double value from this movie. Great stuff, a lot of fun, really interesting tone. And the 3 movies I've seen of Christopher Smith's, Triangles, Severance, and Creep, are really good. I think they're underrated, and they're very much the kinds of horror movies that I enjoy and like. And they have interesting characters in them, even though every character in this one is a wanker each in their own way. So thank you again to Umbrella Entertainment for giving me these movies to review. I'll put a link in the description of the video on where you can I'll put a link in the description of the video so you can shop at Umbrella's website. There's a lot of stuff there, and you can dive in deeply and find a whole bunch of things from westerns to horror movies to comedies to lots of Australian films. Just a ton of stuff there, so I highly recommend you give it a go. So that's it for this time around. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. You can donate through the YouTube website. You can also become a channel member or become a patron at patreon.com/TerryTalksMovies. Let me know which of these movies interest you and whether you've seen any of them, because I'd be interested to see what other people's opinions of them are. So next time around, we've got Science Fiction Saturday once more, and I just selected one of the movies for that. So until all of that, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies, watch some horror movies, and I'll catch you next time.